On a cold April night in 1912, as the North Atlantic swallowed the largest moving object ever built by human hands, a handful of men in a wireless room kept tapping metal keys, hurling sparks into the dark, gambling that invisible waves might outrun death. This is the story of how those sparks changed the United States forever. In 1912, America believed in steel. Steel rails stitched the continent together. Steel bridges leapt across rivers once thought untamable. Steel skyscrapers clawed at the sky in New York and Chicago, monuments to audacity. The country was young, loud, confident. It trusted industry the way earlier generations trusted Providence. And no artifact better captured that faith than the RMS Titanic. Though built in Belfast, Titanic was very much part of the American imagination. Her passenger lists read like a who's who of Gilded Age ambition: industrial magnates, financiers, immigrants chasing new beginnings. She was bound to New York, symbol of the modern world. When she sailed on her maiden voyage in April 1912, newspapers in the United States followed her progress as if she were a celebrity. She was described as unsinkable. That word would haunt America. Among the more than 2,200 souls aboard were some of the wealthiest men in the country. John Jacob Astor IV, one of the richest individuals on Earth, strolled her decks. Benjamin Guggenheim, heir to a mining empire, dined in first class. Isidor Straus, co-owner of Macy's department store, traveled with his wife Ida. They represented the American promise: immigration, industry, fortune. But below decks were others whose stories rarely made headlines: Irish laborers, Scandinavian farmers, Lebanese traders, and dozens of hopeful families clutching steerage tickets and dreams of Ellis Island. To them, Titanic was not luxury, it was passage. And in a small compartment lined with instruments and humming machinery, two young men operated what was then cutting-edge technology: wireless telegraphy. Their names were Jack Phillips and Harold Bride. They were not sailors in the traditional sense. They were employees of the Marconi Company, private contractors whose job was to transmit passengers' personal messages, stock tips, love notes, business instructions across vast distances. Wireless telegraphy was still new. It felt like magic, invisible signals leaping over horizons. In the United States, wireless was already transforming communication. Ships could speak to shore. News could travel faster than steam. Yet regulations were minimal. Frequencies overlapped. Amateur operators crowded the airwaves. It was a technological frontier, chaotic, competitive, largely ungoverned. On the night of April 14, 1912, that chaos nearly silenced Titanic's final cries. Earlier that Sunday, multiple ships sent ice warnings. The North Atlantic that spring was treacherous, crowded with bergs broken loose by an unusually mild winter. Wireless operators aboard nearby vessels tapped out alerts. But Titanic's operators were busy. Passengers were flooding them with personal telegrams to be relayed to Cape Race, Newfoundland, and onward to American cities. Phillips, the senior operator, was trying to clear a backlog after the system had malfunctioned the previous day. His focus was commercial traffic. Ice warnings, though important, were interruptions. One message from the Californian, another ship stopped for the night amid heavy ice, was cut short. Its operator, frustrated, signed off and went to bed. At 11:40 p.m., Titanic struck the iceberg. The impact was subtle, almost polite. Many passengers felt only a shudder, but below the waterline, steel plates buckled, rivets popped. Seawater began flooding 6 compartments. Within minutes, Captain Edward Smith understood the truth. The ship would sink. He walked to the wireless room and told Phillips and Bride to prepare to send distress signals. They began with CQD, the standard call for assistance. Soon they added SOS, joking about its novelty. The tapping intensified, sparks flew. Across the Atlantic night, radio waves carried 3 letters that would become eternal: SOS. Ships responded. The Carpathia, nearly 60 miles away, turned and raced through ice at full speed. The Frankfurt replied, confused about Titanic's exact position. The Olympic, Titanic's sister ship, answered but was too far to help in time. The Californian did not answer. Its lone operator was asleep. For hours, Phillips and Bride continued transmitting as water crept closer. Power flickered. The angle of the deck grew steeper. Lifeboats lowered into darkness, many half empty. In first class, Ida Strauss refused a seat in a lifeboat without her husband. Witnesses later recalled her saying she would not be separated from him after decades of marriage. They were last seen sitting together on deck chairs as the bow dipped lower. Benjamin Guggenheim reportedly changed into evening wear and declared he was prepared to go down like a gentleman. Astor helped his pregnant wife into a boat and stepped back. Below, third-class passengers struggled through language barriers and confusing corridors. Contrary to later myths, there is no solid evidence that steerage passengers were deliberately locked below. However, structural barriers and lack of clear directions cost precious time. Just after 2 a.m., the stern rose high into the air. Lights blinked out. The great ship broke apart. At 2:20 a.m., Titanic vanished. In the freezing Atlantic, more than 1,500 people died. Back in the United States, wireless operators picked up fragmented messages. Confusion reigned. Early reports were wildly inaccurate. Some newspapers, eager for good news, printed headlines declaring all passengers safe, the ship under tow. By the time truth arrived, it hit like a shockwave. The Carpathia docked in New York on April 18th. Thousands gathered in rain and fog. Families scanned lists, searching for names. Wealth and status had not guaranteed survival. Many of America's elite were gone. But alongside grief came anger. How could the most advanced ship in the world sink on its first voyage? Why were there not enough lifeboats? Why did nearby ships fail to respond? And crucially, why was wireless communication so irreliable at the moment it mattered most? Within days, the United States Senate launched an inquiry led by Senator William Alden Smith of Michigan. Though sometimes mocked for his rural demeanor, Smith proved relentless. Survivors, officers, and wireless operators were summoned to testify. The hearings revealed uncomfortable truths. Wireless operators were overworked and under-regulated. Ships were not required to maintain 24-hour radio watches. The Californian's operator had been off-duty, leaving no one to hear Titanic's distress calls. Frequencies were congested, leading to interference. It was a technological frontier, chaotic, competitive, largely ungoverned. The disaster did not merely expose maritime flaws, it exposed America's broader relationship with technology. Innovation had outpaced oversight. And so, from tragedy, legislation emerged.